Have you ever wondered why God ordered a census for the Levites in the book of Numbers chapter 3? This chapter opens a fascinating window into the divine workings of the early Israelite community. In this scene, we're diving into the heart of a divine census, a seemingly mundane administrative task, but one that reveals much about God's plans for his people. The command for a census given to Moses wasn't a simple call for headcount. It was a divine mandate with a profound purpose. This was no ordinary census, it was a divine census, a tool used by God to select and set apart the Levites. The Levites were not just another tribe among the Israelites, they were chosen for a unique role, a sacred responsibility that set them apart from their brethren. They were entrusted with the care of the tabernacle, the movable house of worship that was the symbolic heart of the Israelite community. This responsibility was not a light one. It required dedication, commitment, and a heart aligned with the divine will. And this is where the divine census comes into play. It was not just about counting heads, it was about establishing the Levites in their unique role. The census was a way for God to affirm the Levites' special place in the Israelite community. But there's more. The census also had a deeper symbolic significance. It was a substitution of sorts. The Levites were counted in place of the firstborns of Israel. In ancient times, the firstborn was often dedicated to divine service, but after the census, it was the Levites who were set apart for this role. This was a significant shift, a divine reordering of societal norms. In essence, the census was a way for God to establish his divine order, to set apart the Levites as his special servants. And so we see that in the grand scheme of God's plan, even a census becomes a tool for divine purpose. So, God's command for a census was not a mere headcount, but a divine plan to establish the Levites as his special servants. But what roles did the different families of the Levites play according to Numbers chapter 3, you may ask? Well, let's delve into this fascinating chapter to find out. The Levites were divided into three families: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, each having distinct duties in the maintenance, transportation, and setting up of the tabernacle. The family of Gershon, the eldest son of Levi, was given the responsibility of maintaining and transporting the curtains and coverings of the tabernacle. This included the tent itself, its cover, the screen for the entrance, the hangings of the courtyard, and all their related equipment. They carried these items on their shoulders when the Israelites moved camp. Next, we have the family of Kohath. This family was entrusted with the most sacred objects of the tabernacle. They handled the Ark of the Covenant, the table for the bread of the presence, the lampstand, the altars, and the sacred utensils. They also carried these items on their shoulders, but only after the priests had wrapped them carefully to maintain their sanctity. Finally, the family of Merari was assigned the duty of carrying the frames of the tabernacle, including the bars, pillars, bases, and their accessories. They used wagons for transporting these heavy items. Thus, each Levite family had a critical role, ensuring the smooth functioning of the tabernacle as ordained by God himself. But why did God substitute the firstborns of Israel with the Levites? A question that brings us to the heart of Israelite tradition, where we find the concept of redemption intricately woven into the fabric of their history. Redemption is an act of reclaiming, a claim of ownership. In the context of the Israelites, it has a profound spiritual and historical significance. The firstborns of Israel were sanctified, set apart for God in remembrance of that defining moment in their history, the Passover event. The night when death swept over the land of Egypt, sparing only the households marked with the blood of the Lamb. It was a stark display of God's mercy and protection over his chosen people. Yet, as we delve into the book of Numbers chapter 3, we find an interesting shift. God substitutes the firstborns of Israel with the Levites. This tribe, dedicated to the service of the tabernacle, stands in place of the sanctified firstborns. But why this substitution? It served as a constant reminder. Each time the Israelites looked upon the Levites, they were reminded of God's mercy during that fateful night in Egypt. They were reminded of his protection over them during their liberation. They were reminded of their redemption. In essence, the Levites stood as living testimonies of God's grace and redemption, a divine symbol born out of the census in Numbers chapter 3. Are you ready for the next chapter? Just click here to go straight to it.